Okay, welcome back. So I am about to upload that last video I just did, but before I do, let me exit the student view and go back to the course content. So this video I wanted to explicitly go over the writing project one, again, just kind of give some people a little bit better, well, maybe just another explanation of it, just for some help. So the writing project one, the reflective narrative, I know I've said this like a million times, but I want to say it one more time. The reflective narrative is a story that you're telling that in some form or fashion, has had an effect on your life. So let's say that you're doing, I don't think it's something different. I can't think of it. It's like I have all the same topics. Last semester, a lot of people wrote about drugs. So let's think about that. Let's say that you're talking about how you did drugs in high school and how it negatively impacted your life and how it stopped you from going to college for a few years, and now you're here and you're not doing drugs anymore and it's helped or something like that. So the reflective narrative will be structured in such a way as to, one, you're going to introduce me to the actual topic. So your intro, and I'll go over this next week more explicitly. Your intro is going to consist of three things: the hook, the background, and the thesis. And I'll explain how to write these. I just want to give you a general idea of how this is going to be broken down. That way you can start thinking about how to structure it and the topics that you're going to choose. So I'm only going to explain what's important this week. Monday, the day after tomorrow, I will explain more about what's important next week, because I don't want people to start worrying about what's due 3-4 weeks from now, whenever this week you already have stuff to worry about. So don't worry about getting ahead. Unless you are ahead, in which case just send me an email or something, and I'll go over it more in depth with you. So once you get through that introduction, the second paragraph, you need to start telling that story. Tell us a story about, in this case, we're talking about drugs in high school. Talk about, the first experience you had with drugs. How did you start using it? What was it? What was the effect? Why did you continue doing it? Tell us a story from your perspective about why you were doing whatever XYZ drug you were doing. So let's think now, after that paragraph, then you go into another paragraph about how, and this might be 2 or 3 paragraphs now that I think about it, as to how you experienced the drugs, how you got into it, how it affected you. Then you talk about, in high school, how did those drugs, maybe another section, how did those drugs affect your academic performance? Maybe it was a good way for you to get in with a group of friends, and it allowed you to have a lot of fun, but it also made you sleep late, or it also made you not cognitively, effective so that you could write a paper. And that's the type of stuff you're going to describe in section 2. Now you might have 2 or 3 paragraphs in that. Maybe it affected all these different facets of your life. You talk about academics and how it made you struggle there. Maybe you're in sports and it made you struggle there. Maybe you were in some sort of club and it made you struggle there. Talk about the ways that it made you struggle. Now after that, then you go into a couple years down the road. Now it's been 3 or 4 years, and I haven't gone to college yet because I struggled academically in high school after doing drugs, and so now I'm still struggling, but I'm still doing the drugs. And so at this point, you might do a section of 2 or 3 or 4 paragraphs of how you got over using these drugs. And then after that, after you talk about how you get over it, now at the end of it, you have not your conclusion, because your conclusion is your last paragraph, but then you have this section of maybe 1 or 2 paragraphs to where you talk about how this series of events, trying out drugs, that was section 1, how the drugs affected your school life, that was section 2, how drugs affected after school life, that was section 3. Now section 4, what was the overall impact? What did that stop you from doing? And how has that affected your life overall? And then the conclusion will be basically a wrap-up, reviewing, this is what I did, this is what I talked about. I talked about drugs and how it affected high school. This is how it affected high school. And this is how it affected, after high school. And this is how it affected me now. Something like that. But the thing that I want to talk about most with this is that a lot of people ask me, did I organize this right? As long as you organize it in such a manner that you use your logos and it makes logical sense from point A to point B, that's fine. But one thing that people overlook is think about your purpose. What is the purpose of this essay? Again, like I said at the beginning of the video, it's to instill a moral in your reader. What is the moral of this? Don't do drugs because it'll keep you from going to school. and not going to school will somehow ruin your career, something, I don't know. But that purpose right there, you want to make sure that you achieve. I lost my train of thought here. Talking about too much drugs. Whenever you are talking about this paper, and people ask me, how long it should be, the thing that people often overlook is the most important part. What is the purpose? That's where I was. What is the purpose of this paper? In this case, you're trying to show how the drugs ruin some part of your life, whatever. Well, that section of the paper needs to be the longest section, because if you're really driving the point home, then think about it like this. If you have a paper and the first section is a story and you write 4 paragraphs on the story, well, let's say 6 paragraphs on the story. You spend the whole time just talking about this one part of the story, and then you spend 3 paragraphs talking about how it affected your high school, and then you spend 5 paragraphs talking about how it affected you immediately after high school, then you spend 2 paragraphs talking about how it affected your career. Well, essentially, whatever the longest section of your essay is, that's really what the point of the essay is. I mean, not 100% of the time, but if you spend the most amount of time talking about one particular thing, hopefully that's the point of your story. Because if it's not, then you're wasting space, and you're not being what they call a concise writer. So the big thing I want you to remember is that you can have as many sections as you want, but have the most detailed and the most explicit section be the section that outlines the point. Because if you don't do that, then people are going to think the point is something else. Maybe they'll think the point was just how it affected you in high school and that's it. That's not really what the paper's about. The paper's about how it affected your life down the road and how it's affected your life ever since. And so the story itself about how you use drugs in high school, well, that's not really what the story's about. It's about how your life was affected because of that event. And so if that makes sense, hopefully it makes sense. And if it doesn't, ask me questions in that forum that I just posted here in the Start Here section, right here in the general questions for the course. Ask me some questions in there if that doesn't make sense, because I hope it does. But let me see if there's anything else. One thing that I had a question on this week is the due dates. Now, at the very top, you'll find the most important due dates. August 28th, which is next Friday, and then September 6th, which is the following Sunday after the 28th. Well, not the following Sunday, but let me show you. The 28th is next Friday. Here's Saturday. Today, Saturday. Next Friday, the rough draft is due. Now, like I said before, as long as you have 3 to 4 pages and you have a story that you're reflecting on, a reflective narrative, then your rough draft will get 100%. I'll probably tear the rough draft up. I'll probably have all these red marks and have all these suggestions, but you're not going to lose any points because I want you to learn and have a chance to correct your mistakes. You're here to learn. How can you do well on a paper if you don't know how to do those parts of the paper? So you get the freebie, and that's what the rough draft is. It's time for you to make all your mistakes. Don't worry about making mistakes. Make as many as you want because hopefully I'll catch them. And whenever I catch them, I'll then also show you how to avoid doing those types of things. And one thing that I'm going to try doing this semester is to... Oops, I realized my mic. One thing I'm going to be doing this semester is to grade a paper online before you write your own. So I think this Sunday I'm going to make a video to where I'm actually grading a paper. It'll be one of my old student papers. And I'll show you exactly what it is I'm looking for. That way when you write your draft and turn it on next Friday, then it'll be a pretty good draft, and you won't have a whole lot of changes coming on the 6th, which is down here. So that'll give you a week and a couple days to work on your final draft. Of course, it'll take me the weekend to get you your rough drafts back, so you'll basically have all of the 3rd week to work on and turn in your final draft. So that's good. All these things I think are pretty self-explanatory now that I've gone over them in the last video. Identify your purpose, audience, and genre. Specifically talk about the social issue which you've had the experience, develop a thesis around the narrative, an event around which the narrative and event will develop, and produce a narrative that describes the importance of the events on your life. Now that is the big thing. Make sure your narrative, and every time I use narrative, that's just another word for story. So when we say reflective narrative, we're just saying a story that reflects on your life. Not an autobiography, because this is only one event. Autobiography does the whole life. We're just a reflective narrative. We're interested in one event and how that event You describe the importance of that event in your life. How does it change your life? And then, of course, the due date's here, self-explanatory. But again, nothing's really due this week, aside from the homework that's in the course content folder, which is you just answering those 5 or 6 questions. And those are meant to kind of get you brainstorming and get you on the right path to doing your rough draft. Let's see here. I think that is everything. If there's anything I've missed, be sure to just ask, because I will post videos all day long, every day if you need to, because I think this is probably the best way to communicate via an online class. So I tend to try and stay away from text, because I know text can be misinterpreted and misunderstood. So video is a little bit more difficult to misinterpret. I say it and I mean it. So I thought there was something else I wanted to tell you, but I can't remember what it was. Alright, well, if I think of it, I'll post it in the announcements. Other than that, I think that is all that I need to tell you. So I'm going to let you guys go and ask away with any questions you might have. Thanks.